Hi, I'm Mackenzie.
Hey, I'm Denise, and welcome to the podcast from Rundown to Renewed. Today, we have one of my dear friends, Marta, on the podcast. Marta is an award-winning entrepreneur, best-selling author, and national media featured business expert. Through her financial rep business, she helps families plan for financial peace, all while raising seven kids and enjoying life outdoors. She is fluent in Italian and French. Marta brings her heritage and passion to stages and media worldwide, and she is a proud European immigrant. So, Marta, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you can tell, if you're watching, you can tell by Marta's background, Course Corrected, our book launches tomorrow. We are very, very excited. It's been such a fun process over the last year to really get this up and moving. So, Marta, how did this vision of bringing people together to do a book start? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's actually, I have to give credit to the publisher. A fellow coach and colleague came to the publisher and said, I think you should reach out to Marta to be one of your featured authors. I think, so I humbly say this. I think she'd be really good at bringing people together and get some pretty good traction for the book to get some good audience and notoriety. And I'm honored and blessed and humbled to be the chosen one. And then, yeah, my task is to bring women together who I know that we're going to be alongside each other and be proud of each other's stories and in alignment in mission and vision and morals and values. And it's going to put together a book that's not just fluff, that's going to be, I just love to make people cry in a good way, in a bad way. You know, sometimes you just crave a good cry, and that's what the book is going to do, hopefully for you in a good way, in a good way.
Yeah, so what is Course Corrected all about?
Yeah, so it's about stories of trials and tribulations turned into passion and purpose that, and you can't see this part of the cover in my background, but the tagline on it says, or whatever you want to call it, it says, it's not your pivot, it's your path. Because sometimes we think, oh, shoot, this big bomb was just dropped. And now I have to figure out how to make life happen, how to even adult. I was already struggling to adult, and now I have to adult with a bomb that's going to go off, that just went off. And instead of thinking of it that way, I truly believe that it is your destined path, that it's the divine, it's God, and you just embrace it. And every day, I love to pray, God, show me what it is, how I can serve you, and what path you want me to walk. And I say this prayer with my kids before every meal, before bedtime. And I feel that this is what the book is. God showing us what how we could serve him. And it was hard and it was gritty and it sucked. But sometimes that comes with a little bit of thrashing on our part. I don't know. I wonder if maybe we just released and we just let go each time we were asked to walk faithfully. Maybe there would be less drama. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, there's definitely a thrashing, I think, before the surrender, for sure.
I think about that every time, like my toddler has got some chocolate on his face, and I'm like just trying to get it off, or I'm just trying to brush his teeth, or my dog, this we're gonna get it graphic, has a dingleberry, and he's like trying to bite me and like kill me in the process, and I'm like, I'm just trying to help you, and so I think that's what the relationship is with God and me. I'm like thrashing, like trying to like save my life. Meanwhile, he's like, I'm saving your life. No, you can just sit still. Like I'm doing it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. That is so, so true. I love that prayer that you pray. Can you tell us like how has that has to like transform your days, I feel like. What's that like for what's that
Yeah.
when did you start saying that prayer?
Probably when I read the book, probably 5 or so years ago. Well, actually, I'm going to backtrack. We're going to go back to the childhood because that's what we do sometimes. I go, 10 steps back. I remember a pivotal moment. I think I was in, no, I know I was in eighth grade, Catholic, getting ready for confirmation. And our pastor was calling us up to the front saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember I kind of fumbled his ball for him because I went up and I said, whatever God wants me to be. I don't know, And you could tell he was kind of like, well, that was the whole point of my spiel. Couldn't you say teacher or something like that? And I remember being so embarrassed, mortified when I sat down.
Mm,
I was probably bright red because everybody else said something poignant and specific. And I was like, whatever God wants me to be. And then I felt kind of like a brown noser too. But I think I have to credit my parents. My dad was always like that. So, but that specific prayer comes from the book, It's Not Your Money by Tanya. I always get the last name wrong. And in fact, I was just re-listening to that same book again. But pick it up. It's Not Your Money. It's phenomenal. And it's full of transform me prayers and how you can let go and just trust God and the divine and whatever the divine plan is for you.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so Marta, let's talk about money a little bit, okay? Like that's because that's what you do. And it's really interesting because over the last, I don't know, probably few years, I have been transforming how I think about money and believe about money, and it's a whole thing. Um, I am a very frugal person. Like, I say no to myself a lot. I'm trying to change that. But there's also like, you have to be smart
Yeah.
about things like, so how do you combine faith and money? Because I feel like that's such a touchy subject for people of faith, but it doesn't have to be. And I feel like I've listened to you and I've watched you handle things so beautifully and gracefully with money. So, like, what would you say to people of faith that are wrestling with like weird money mindsets?
Yeah, thank you for that, for those kind words. I really appreciate that. So I really am going to go back to the book again. The literal title of the book is "It's Not Your Money," because what that means is it's God's money.
Right.
All money that comes to you is from God. So we might see it as it comes from a job, it comes from a client, it comes from a refund, it comes from penny pinching. But in reality, it comes from God. And so when you're going to make those more confident, more discerning money decisions, I will be the first to tell you that I took that completely incorrectly, where I was like, I am making all this money. I mean, literally on track for millions with my marketing agency. And I trust that it's his money and God always provides. So as much as it was flowing in, I was flowing out tens of thousands of dollars each month. It was flowing in. I trust that God will provide. I'm flowing it out. And then some, and then some, and then some. And then when there's the divine economy and there's the human economy. And when the human economy contracted, I continued on that path and I trust God and God will provide. And I then wasn't very trusting, because then I was clinging on to all of these habits and clinging on to team, clinging on to these expenses, these membership, all these big things that were totally doable when the agency made as much as it made every month. And I just was clinging on. So I wasn't letting go. I wasn't trusting. I was thinking I was acting as if, right, and manifesting continued wealth, but really I was not being wise and discerning. And so I like to equate that relationship with money as in a divine way, as like God entrusted you with this money, God gave it to you. And so be respectful with it, just like you would a significant other. And you would want to spend time with that significant other. Will spend time with your money. You would want to respect that significant other. Will respect your money, and you want to appreciate that significant other. So appreciate your money. When you just simply become so obsessed and you're willing to do anything for money and you're willing to sin for money, that's the root of evil. But when you are trusting that you're always provided for and you come at it from a loving space and you respectful space, then I think that's the marriage of the divine with the human money.
Did you notice like what were the differences in yourself with, this kind of clinging onto phase with the money versus the trusting? Like what did you notice about yourself in those two different spaces?
That I was making the mistake of thinking that it was all on my shoulders and it was all in my hands and it was all in my feet, and rather than remembering that he always has a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And so and you just put your all the stuff on your shoulders because you want to carry the weight of not just yourself but your family, your team, and then your vendors, and then your contractors, and it's like, well, if I don't do all this, then they're not provided for. And it's like, but don't you remember you're not the provider? It's God. What the heck are you doing? Try to play God. Let it go. And
Wow.
I'm telling you what, when the worst thing happens, when my biggest fear happened of, oh my gosh, now I'm not making all of this money, so freeing. I was just so grateful for it. It's so freeing when you're like, oh, my worst fear, obviously that's not everybody's worst fear, but my worst fear happened and I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay. And team members were okay because God provides.
Mm.
Yeah.
Always makes a way.
Yeah. So then in the book, it talks about how that experience, well, in conjunction with it opens with something pretty upsetting that happened as my mom was literally in the hours that she was dying, and how that moment and those two things, and then at the same time facing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit from my husband's land development entities. It was just like this beautiful disaster of all the worst things that could happen to you at once, and how that led to how I help families today. Because the imposter syndrome would say, how can you help families when this happened and that happened and that's happened and you're still handling the aftermath of that? And it's like, well, that's exactly why I can help families, because I get to be a space that's confidential and non-judgmental and loving. And there's nothing probably that you could show me that I would think anything negative of you. And nothing that you could show me about your spouse, anybody that's in your financial house, that I would judge them in any way, because we're all human.
Yeah, I love how God just equipped you with that too,
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
using the trials and being able to then turn it into good. He always does.
Right. And then I was also able to recognize in the business how I was repeating the same mistakes as when in past experiences. And so then I thought, well, maybe I just needed to learn my lesson a little better, because I was making the same mistakes. And obviously, I use air quotes for obvious reasons, but if you're listening, I'm using air quotes, okay? Because I don't believe in mistakes, I believe in lessons. And sometimes, even when they're expensive mistakes, I heard this. I wish I could, from Jackie. She is the founder of Pennywise Accounting. There's no such thing as an expensive mistake. It's just the cost of tuition of the lesson you learned. And maybe I just needed to go back to school for that lesson.
Right. That's a perspective shift, right?
Yeah.
And it takes the shame out of it. And it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, because and I think a lot of people carry shame around money because of decisions that they've made or things that have happened, or maybe they didn't have, you know, their quote unquote right mind around things. And they just keep making those same, quote unquote mistakes that aren't mistakes, they're just lessons. But it doesn't, I heard somewhere that if things are continually loud in your life, you need to pay attention because it's trying to teach you something. And it sounds like that was what was happening for you, or these patterns just kept coming
Yeah.
up and they were loud.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it was really interesting, because then you're like, okay, I'll listen next time. I promise, God, you don't need to do this again. I got it now. It's all upwards from here, right? It's like,
Right.
no, probably, maybe, but you know, so that's the whole point. Let go and wait and see what happens.
Yeah. What would you say to someone? I appreciated what you said because I have felt that way too a lot, especially as a single mom, where I feel like I have to figure everything out all the time, like with everything, but especially with money, right? And so I read a quote in a book, and I can't say it like the exact quote, but it was like something along the lines of, God didn't allow you to get to where you are in life just to let you have to figure everything out on your own. And that's something that he's been trying to teach me a lot, is it's not all on you. Like I don't like I can do it. Like sit. Like yes, I will honor your efforts, and yes, I will open doors for you for money to come in, but it's not for you to figure out every single detail. And I think a lot of us get stuck in that because we're looking at the very real realities of our bank accounts and this and that. And if we're in the red, then it's like, well, where's the money gonna come from? Like, I don't know.
Right. I I actually had something similar happen with my son recently where he has this Lego obsession. And and I think a lot of parents can relate to that, but I mean,
Yes,
it's like
we both can.
nonstop. How can I get more Legos? How can I get more Legos? Can I get this set? How much money am I getting for my birthday? What about Christmas? I'm just trying to do the math of what kind of Lego sets I can get.
Mhm.
And I hate to say it, but this was exacerbated with he has a dear friend that he is just the sweetest. And but there you could tell the difference between we have 7 kids and there's essentially it's a long story, but it's essentially he's an only child. And so there is a philosophical discussion behind that God provides, and I'm a firm believer that I don't think that having more children limits my family. I think that God provides even more and more and more and more and more. But there is something to be said about we have 7 kids, and so we might not get the biggest Lego set just from a standpoint of different families do different things as well. And maybe we don't they're constantly entertaining each other. So he was like seeing all these Lego sets that his friend has, and it's like, how can I get those? And I constantly have to remind them, like, you don't have to worry about how you'll get these Legos. You can stop obsessing about it, because if it's on your desire and if it's meant for you and if God really wants that for you, you'll get these Legos. And he's like, are you trying to tell me you're getting me those Legos? Or are you trying to hint at it? And I'm like, oh my God. Literally, oh my God, help me right now. So I think, we do that as adults too. And I think, again, I learn these lessons from my kids too. Okay, that's what I probably look like to God. So that's just a reminder. But I have so many stories of this huge thing just was put in the forefront of it needs to be handled this week. And or there's no choice. This big financial thing needs to be handled this week. And it can go in either direction. So rather than being like, how am I going to do that? Like, where's that going to come from? But offer it up to God. And if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. So one specific scenario, and I'll tell you how it can go both ways. One specific scenario was we were supposed to go on a road trip to visit family. And right then I think I had 2 flat tires at the same time, which resulted in you have to get all 4 because of some reason. And so that became I think it was like $1,400. That was like, you have to do this today or you can't go tomorrow. And no matter what your financial situation is, that's a big expenditure to just say, okay, do that today. You have to think about, well, I was planning to do this. We were planning on to go on this trip, on this vacation, and this is coming up and that's coming up. Let me see how I can do it. But if I'm truly meant to do it, it'll happen. And you just kind of pray about it and you're like, God, I'm just curious, rather than like, how am I going to do this? It's like, I'm just curious. Like, if you want me to handle this today, like, how's that going to go down? And I remember it's just like these ideas drop in meditation and prayer. And it's like, you have this extra camera gear in your basement that's worth thousands of dollars that you never use, Marta. And so it was like, okay. So I took one of my Sonys and I was like, I think it was like, I put it up for a certain amount, and then right away I got all these leads. So I'm like, oh, I definitely underpriced that, but whatever. And then she's like, and I also need lenses. Do you have any lenses? And I'm like, yeah. And okay, and I also need this and this. Do you have that? Sure. And it ended up being like the exact amount that I wasn't sure. Wasn't sure where it was going to come from, like where it was going to transfer from. I don't, what for whatever reason. So I like to get really personal about money because I like to deflate the stigma around you shouldn't talk about money and what's in your bank account, how much things cost. Why? Who said that? What's the, I don't know. I think we should just be open about it. Like, it's not dirty talk. So in that case, it was like, I was fully provided for. I met this person on my way to get the new tires. Must have just been one tire because I had a spare, but I digress again. And she Venmo'd me, and then I had the exact right amount to go get the tires. And it was like, okay, I guess I'm going on this road trip. And then another scenario actually happened this past week. Do we have time for me to share it?
Absolutely.
Okay. This past week, and it went the complete opposite direction. And it was that we filed extensions, and according to all of my husband, he has a land development and he gets these documents. It just showed that we made a huge amount of money that we don't actually pocket, because then of the way that the funds are reinvested towards other projects because of deadlines and things need to move forward. So because of that, that showed that we made this large amount of money, it significantly affected my kids' scholarships for them to go to the private institutions that they go to. And because it took us so long to get all these tax documents for all these different entities, it was like, this is the scholarship they're getting, and this amount is due by today. And it was like something, it was crazy, you guys. It was crazy. It's not, maybe not crazy, but it was just certain amount that was like, by today or my kids are out of your school. Yes, by today or your kids are out. I mean, they didn't say it in those terms, but those were the terms. And I offered it up to God, and I said, and I applied for this scholarship and this other scholarship, and I tried to call lovingly, I tried to email and have conversations with my husband. And it wasn't just that it was like this very large amount is due today. It was also, this very large amount is what you have to commit to for every month for the next 10 months.
Oh, wow.
Or your kids are out. And I had to pull the kids out. And I lost sleep over it. I didn't eat probably for 2 days while I was trying to figure this out. I already said I lost sleep, but I mean, I was just heartbroken because we had pined after the school. We moved to the area because of the school. We were waitlisted for years, and we were finally in, and we had switched our kids against their wishes, where they loved their school, to this new school, and now all of a sudden they were out. And but I think that's God's will then. What, if you've done everything that you could do, and everybody's hands are tied, then everybody's hands are tied. What are you going to do? So I get to have the pleasure to homeschool my kids next year, which is what I wanted to do anyways, which is what I was saying all summer anyways. Like, I don't want them to go back to school. I wish I could just keep them with me. But so, then there's disagreements in your marriage about that, because that's secretly what I wanted. And then it's like, well, did you do it on purpose? And it's like, no, I promise I didn't do it on purpose. It's just like, it's what I want. And I guess that's what God wanted too. And right away, the same day, I found the perfect co-op that's like 10, 15 minutes from our house. And we already had our first meeting, and I love the way that they nurture children, and it's a godly community, and they're going to get to spend like every day with their cousins. And so there's still a piece of it that we're trying to figure out. That's still heartbreaking, but I know that God will provide. And I try to have those conversations. My kids were happy except for one, which is still what we're trying to figure out, but also having those conversations with your kids of, well, if it's God's will, it's God's will. And I know that's hard to hear, bud. And I know that you've been through so much, but if it's God's will, it's God's will. There's nothing you can do about it, but you can keep praying it, keep offering it up to God, and you never know what miracles could happen. And you don't have to wait for miracles. They could be like this. So we'll see how that works out.
I love that you brought up like praying for God's will also, because there's just a peace that comes, like no matter the circumstance that you have, when you know that God's will is happening, even when it is difficult, right?
Right.
I had a similar situation also, by the way, and we homeschool our children now.
Oh, great. I love that. Yeah. I'm all about homeschooling. I have memories of paying for the most elite schools, not the same school, thinking I'm doing the best for my kids. And it's not, and it's straining us financially. It's causing financial stress. And I did it for so many years. And now I have kids who are almost grown telling me these stories that I think are contributing to severe mental health issues, that I'm like, and I paid for that.
Right.
I'm because you think like I'm working extra hard to sacrifice for my children to send them to these elite schools, but ultimately they're just strangers with degrees. And you think that they're going to have the same values and the same ways to discipline children, but no, they're not. You have zero control over it, and you have to go by their rules, which I don't like to follow other people's rules. So that's why I homeschool. Let's be honest.
That's so good. Yeah. Well, this was so good. Thank you for hanging out with us. I Money's such a, it shouldn't be. It's like you said, it's not dirty talk, but I think we treat it like dirty talk sometimes. And so I
As
appreciate,
private. It's not, okay, if you want it to be, sure.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's so healthy to have people in your corner that you can talk to about money in a healthy way. Can you share uh what was it called that you did? I joined it. It was like it was a money challenge.
Oh, yeah.
What was it called? Because it was so fun and I still do it. It's so fun.
Yeah, and the idea comes from multiple books. So I can't take credit for it, but if you read Get Rich Lucky Bee, it talks about claiming and um, witnessing every dollar in your life. And it comes obviously from the standpoint of that which you focus on expands, right?
Right.
And that which you love grows. And so every single day in this challenge, in this private secret Facebook group, we shared random money that dropped in our laps that we weren't expecting. And we also could, if like you didn't have anything to share for, I think we did this for 30 days. If you didn't have anything to share, you could certainly claim witness of your salary, whatever, But what started to happen, and I said, I kid you not, I can't guarantee this, but kid you not, you're going to see that once you start doing this, you're going to start witnessing all this unexpected money that you're not giving credit to, that God bestows upon you. And stuff like that was happening left and right for everybody in the group. And I then encouraged everybody to do that on a regular basis. Have a little journal or have like a buddy that you do this with of like, oh my gosh, I just found this check in the mail for $500 because I overpaid on a premium 2 years ago. And guess what? It was the exact amount for this thing that I wanted to do. I think I want to give that as a number one tip for raising your wealth consciousness, because you're constantly faced with so many things in your life that kind of bring you down. And so spending just 10 minutes a day with divinely inspired reading, and that could be the Bible for you. Just finding really good books that if you don't have time to read, just play in the car. That's what I do. At least 10 minutes a day. And my kids will be like, oh, and I'm like, you know the deal. Just 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. And then we'll play your music if I'm not by myself in the car, because then it teaches them too. Right. And so a really good book for that. That's one of my all-time favorites I'm listening to again, because I run out of stuff to listen or to. It's Not Your Money. The one before that I listened to 3 times in a row because it was so good is A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And you think it's going to be something, but it's totally divinely inspired. And it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful books. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I will say, recently, my grandpa gave everybody Christmas in July checks, and I had random bills come up and it like covered the bills and then some. So then I had fun money to do, like to take the girls out to the movies or do this or that. And I was like, ooh, money, play the money game. Before we wrap, can you tell us a little bit about your chapter in the Course Corrected book, which launches tomorrow? We'd love to just give readers or well listeners and then future readers a little taste of what you have to share.
Yeah, it opens with the scene when I had just given birth to my 6th baby, and my mom was dying at the same time. And because of that timing, I really had no choice but to bring my newborn baby into the hospital during her last dying moments. If you have a newborn baby like I've had, they won't take a bottle. They're, unless they're with their mama, they're screaming and crying. But when they're with you, they're like, you just brought in not like a baby doll, because they're not making a peep. So I brought in my sleeping newborn baby boy, and I was obviously keeping him safe, keeping my mom safe. It was not really during COVID times, but sort of we're talking about April 2022. And I heard a knock on the door, and it was security guards ready to escort me out because I brought a baby into the hospital, which is hilarious to me because I had a home birth, and the amount of stuff you get from medical professionals telling you that the hospital is the safest place to have a baby, yet you're kicking me out from my mama's deathbed because you're afraid of my child's safety. And it's like, don't even get me started, And so I had to miss her passing away, but I recently heard the best quote that was like, if you weren't there in the moments of their passing, it is because God and that person maybe just didn't want that to be the last memory of it. And so that really brought me some comfort. And it really, then the book talks about how that was such a ridiculous scenario that I felt like, what's the message here? And it really did set me into a spiral of learning about life insurance, and that you should have, this is, I'm going to get on my soapbox, your life insurance should have an accelerated death benefit, because if it does and you get an end of life diagnosis like my mom did, you're able to utilize, depending on the policy, 40 to 60% of the policy on end of life care. And had I known whether she had that, she could have passed peacefully at home as she wished. But in Pennsylvania, that's all out of pocket, and it wasn't something that and it's an absorbent amount, guys. It's it's not nothing. And so it was such a quick thing that it wasn't like we could take out this large amount of money to allow that experience for her. And so that's what led me to becoming a financial rep, and I dedicate that to her every day.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing, and get the book tomorrow and read the rest. You'll be very encouraged. Crying happy tears.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we end, we want to have some closing conversations. We are launching our testimony course next week, so make sure you register for that in the description. And we also have our women's conference coming up on November 8th. So mark your calendar and get ready for that conference. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And for those of you that resonated with this episode, we would love for you to share it with a friend. If something came up and you thought of someone, that's a divine inspiration. Make sure you send it to them, because I'm sure they needed to hear it. And be sure to give us a 5-star review so we can get more eyes and ears on the podcast.
And if you're feeling run down,
there is space for you at our table.